Okay, welcome to this video. I'm really delighted to be joined this evening by Phil Askew. Phil's a fantastic coach and specialising in brand discovery. First of all, welcome Phil to the call.
Thank you.
Just want to kind of kick off, first of all, by, as I always do when I'm talking to coaches, by asking you kind of what got you into coaching. What was your journey to where you are?
Well, my journey started out being in the creative industry. So I started out being a graphic designer, always trained and followed the kind of right brain school of thought. Always drawing when I was a young kid. Got then into web design and pursued it on from that point, really. Discovered emotional intelligent leadership when I was put into a position of management, and coaching fell out of that, really. So yeah, that's kind of a very short version of my journey.
Yeah, okay, so that cuts out a whole load of stuff, I reckon, in the middle somewhere, which is you went from being a designer to understanding emotional intelligence to get the best from managing. What then led you to say, oh, there's a whole leap to be had here, which is the leap towards coaching?
Actually seeking out a coach myself. So I was in this position, as I said, the graphic design, web design position for probably 5 years too long. And I realised I was stuck in a complacent position, a complacent place. The money was great, but I was in this real flatlining environment.
Yeah.
And I mean, the place was great. It was just that I wasn't particularly congruent there. I wasn't compatible. My values were out of alignment.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know this terminology now because I'm a coach, but at the time, I just felt as if there was something more. Something was calling me from afar and calling me in a different direction.
What was that direction?
Well, I saw this video by by a coach called Lee Chalmers, and she was an amazing coach, called herself a life coach. And I thought, yeah, there's something about her. There's something about her that's going to allow me to see my full potential and pull me out of this funk that I was in, towards something different. And in the process of actually going to see it actually unraveled that coaching was probably the thing I was going to pursue. It was just so mind-blowing for me. It was just, incredible.
What was it about it? Was it understanding how people think and do things, or was it the actual impact of helping them? What was it about coaching that started to grab you?
Well, interestingly, and I'm sure you know what with being a coach, it's kind of like when you work with other people, your stuff unfolds along with it.
Right.
Very much a two-way process. And so as I'm evolving as an individual and as a human being, as I'm working with other people, there's a real sort of backwards, forwards evolution. And as we're ascending up into being in much more congruence with who we are, much more in alignment with who we are at the core, at the heart.
Yeah. But so for you, it's almost like a journey of personal growth. Was intrinsic, if you like, to the journey you were taking as a coach.
Yeah. Maybe it's a little bit selfish, but I realised that working with other people, that I was evolving in myself, and I was starting to have a wider focus of thinking and my interpretation of what all this stuff, all this life is about, starting to become much wider, richer, denser, more colourful.
Okay, that gives me some interesting thought. Well, it's interesting to me anyway. Interesting thoughts about where you are in your business then, because presumably that's still important to you. So that personal growth. So how is that affecting how you now take your coaching business forward?
Wonderful, yeah. It's constantly evolving. Yeah. So starting out in the early days, so when I originally qualified as a professional coach, I had an idea about my niche and the direction. I was coaching people one-to-one around kind of life coaching, and then realised that actually I'm going to lean into my past a little bit more, my brand and my creativity, and I'm going to bring that forwards. And I'm going to have a much more holistic viewpoint as opposed to just being a one-on-one coach, which deals with everything in life. The thing is, we actually know that we do deal with everything in life. It's just that having a more clearly defined market niche, I think, is really beneficial so that clients can actually find me a lot easier. But going back to your point, it's actually allowing my business to evolve as I evolve. I'm very into the idea that as I discover my own personal brand, that then gets projected out into my business brand. And from that place, obviously, the brand is always going to change and always going to evolve as I do.
Yeah.
So it's quite organic.
Yeah, that makes sense, because presumably if you feel like if you're stultified, if you like, if you're no longer growing, then the business as a coach would no longer be good enough for you.
Yeah, very good point.
It's no longer serving its purpose for you.
Yeah. So it's almost like the vehicle that I'm traveling in on this journey, on this life journey. And I've got some passenger seats, and so I'm getting those passengers in with me, you know, and hopefully they're enjoying the ride as well. If not, they can get on.
Next service station, off they go.
Yeah.
So Phil, how would you describe your business now? What do you actually do as a coach?
So I predominantly work with individuals to gain clarity around their personal brand identity, around their personal brand. The reason I do that is so that they get much more in alignment with what's true and what's important for them at the core and at the heart. It bypasses the head, it bypasses all the noise and the stories of the past, so that these individuals, whether they're in a corporate environment or whether they've set their own company up, actually have this real clear definition of where it is that they're going and where they're headed to. Yeah, that's pretty much a summary of how I work and who I work with.
And how do you think that's important to that person? So let's say you're a business person, you go, oh, chuck a brand together. The main thing is they've got clients. How do you feel that it's important that they actually get to grips with a deeper sense of what their brand's all about?
A sense of fulfillment, yeah. So if you're talking about an individual, I work with individuals and teams of people in small business. If you're talking about an individual, then it's getting them in alignment with what's important to them in their heart and in their kind of the world experience. Allows life to be a much more fulfilling place to be. And it also kind of debunks that old story that work needs to be hard, work needs to be difficult, because it doesn't. Work should be fun, it should be play.
Yeah.
It should be you doing what you love doing. And everyone has something within them, almost like a jewel within them, that they can then transform and turn into a business. But I actually love finding that jewel within individuals through coaching. So we find that personal brand and just allow them to see that jewel within themselves and turn that into a personal brand.
So who would your client be? Would it be somebody just starting off, or somebody who's established and they're looking to kind of tweak the brand, or what would that sort of ideal client be?
Yeah. So interestingly, the people that I find, now that I'm very clear on who my ideal clients are, they come to me, and there seems to be this nice alignment that's happened, so they're coming to me. And those people tend to be the people who have followed or are on a very similar journey to the one that I had. So I often find that they're just tapping in just slightly behind me on that journey, which is kind of interesting, whether it's a kind of universal delivery service or something. But the people coming to find me are the people that I'm passionate about working with.
Yeah.
That is people stuck in corporate environments, big corporate environments, where they feel as if they've lost their identity in amongst that big machine.
Yeah.
So I'll often find that my clients come to me with a problem, so they hold that problem in their hand and they say, I want to change jobs, I'm on really great money, but I really don't know if this is the career for me, if this is what I should be doing. Okay. So we look at that problem, and I actually look at the relationship that they have between them and the problem, as opposed to the problem itself. Because obviously, as coaches, we don't look to the problem and solve it as such. We look to their relationship to it. Whereas my focus on that client is looking at their relationship to themselves and what it is that they're saying no to and what they're saying yes to.
Okay. So you mentioned this ideal client would be somebody who's maybe got frustrated with where they are in life and they're looking for a new opportunity. Would that be starting a business then, from the sounds of it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. So they're just at the start of their... Sorry, you're going to say something?
Well, yeah. It's interesting because it's pre-jump and post-jump are the kind of people that I work with. So you have pre-jump, who are individuals within these corporates who know they want something different. I then coach with them, and they tend to find, right, I need to get out of here and I need to create my own thing. I've found my jewel or my purpose. So then I work with them to define their business brand, which is the extension of their personal brand, so that they have this vehicle that they can go off and start their business with and feel much more in alignment with their truth.
Yeah. Okay. And when you work with them, Phil, what kind of approach are you taking in terms of specifically, like tactically, if you like? How are you helping them to find that brand within them, to find that jewel and take that forward?
Well, I start very much with a face-to-face. So I run this thing called the Brilliant Brand Discovery Model, which is a 2.5-hour workshop face-to-face, which unearths the brand personality, the target audience, unique offering, and struggles and requirements. of that individual.
Mm.
So if they're starting their own business, then they have a much clearer definition of what those aspects are. So they then feel very, very focused on who it is that they're actually called to help and what it is that they're called to help them with.
Yeah.
So I clearly define the struggles within that target audience that they are more than capable of helping them with, so that they can market themselves much more holistically and naturally.
Okay.
So that's the first step. The second step is coaching, one-on-one coaching. So I either do that over the phone, or I'm a big fan of actually getting face-to-face so that I can really, really get into what's going on for that individual, because obviously we give off so many signals physically, and our geography, our physical geography, has so much to say that sometimes we miss over the phone. Obviously, like we're doing, Skype is a great...
Yeah, it's a nice intermediary, isn't it?
Yeah, it interprets it really nicely as well.
Yeah.
But I'm also a big fan of actually walking with clients. I think there's a real sense of making progress if we're walking in really beautiful scenery. Yeah. So, because I'm very lucky to be very close to Greenwich and South Bank, I head down there and I take clients and we walk along the South Bank, past Houses of Parliament, London Eye, all these wonderful metaphors that jump out and we can use in the coaching.
Okay.
And yeah, it's great. People love this sense of flow and they love this sense of movement. So I'm a big fan of human interaction.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So you've got the workshop. The workshop sounds like it's a one-to-one workshop, so it's not so much coaching as a more of a process. Is that why you're calling it a workshop rather than coaching? Because it's like a sort of a programmed kind of thing.
It is, yeah. The reason that I differentiate it is because there is a distinct path to it. It's almost like a journey.
Yeah.
So we go using visualization and unfolding using coaching. We map on the wall. So we actually take this journey from one position to the next stage and vice versa and all the way through. And by the end of it, there is a structure and there is a map, a brand map, and a brand compass that you can clearly see, which is an externalization of who you are at the core.
Yeah.
So yeah, the reason I call that a workshop is because it is a structured exercise.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, that makes sense. And then you take them through one-to-one coaching. Where would you ideally leave them?
In terms of at the end of the session, or in terms of at the end?
So at the end of the kind of your work with them, what's the sort of the departure point for you two as a sort of a working pair, if you like?
Yeah. So what happens is clients, once they've unearthed who they are at the core, we then get them to externalize that. I then focus on actually allowing them to see within themselves, almost acting like a mirror, seeing within themselves what they're holding back on, what emotional blockages they've got, what their calling is, and letting go of old stories. There's a lot of old stories that hold us back and keep us in a very sort of fear-led place. So exposing all these different things and unfolding them in a very safe space and very, very holistic, very safe, private space, unless you're in the South Bank. And so once they have the awareness of that, we have a very tangible method of moving them forward, and I then mentor them on externalizing their brand. So I run mentor sessions interlaced with the coaching. Okay. So I call them Brilliant Brand Mentor sessions or mentor modules. So yeah, your natural form of marketing, your logo, your company name, that sort of thing. Yeah. Externalizing what we've discovered into a series of nodes that edges around the outside of you at the core. If that makes sense.
It does make sense, and I think it's to some degree underrated, maybe is the right word, about how important that is. And I think when somebody gets a brand that they really feel represents them, they become deeply passionate and motivated by it. Whereas when they have something which somehow is watered down, even though it's the same business fundamentally, they don't feel quite the same. It doesn't feel, it's not been like manifested into the world the way they wanted it to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like flipping it on its head. In the old school methodology was, okay, I'm going to create this thing which I believe that the public want, or my punters want. And when they weren't responding to it, sales kind of gets a bit heavy, and then people then push this product or this service on the individuals. We then put up our defences, and it's a case of, well, actually, no, I don't want that. And so we're bombarded by advertising all the time. And this inverts that process. And it kind of looks at what you actually are passionate about and what you want to put into the world, what your personal impact is. And when you talk about that, products actually fall out of that, and the brand falls out of that. And then people feel much more inclined to believe you because it's true. It's true for you as an individual and as a business.